you all for joining us today. This is our innovation panel in terms of technology, and I'm Andrew Langer. I'm the director of the CPAC Foundation Center for Regulatory Freedom and public policy activist for many, many years. Sitting immediately to my left is Tim Zorc. Tim is with Green Cool Infrastructure. He's also a long-time, a very, very life, Tim. Lots of different things. Real estate. What else have you been involved in?
Aviation projects.
Excellent.
And latest quest is working in the voluntary carbon market.
We're gonna talk all about that, about the work that you're doing with Green Cool Infrastructure. And then furthest off to my right is Richard McCarty. He is the founder of the Coalition for Motorists Rights. And I love his very libertarian streak to the way he looks at things. I'm not going to call you a libertarian. I wouldn't insult you by doing that, because if you ask a libertarian what libertarianism is, you ask 5 libertarians what libertarianism, you're going to get at least a dozen different answers. But I want to tee it off as a multifaceted discussion, gentlemen. Start with the very general, which is, for me, as a public policy professional, I see public policy as the actions by which we solve problems, as opposed to the political process or politics, which is, a gamesmanship, trying to get people elected, the electoral side of it. But at some point in time, once people get elected, once government officials are selected, once people get hired, the whole idea is they're supposed to be solving problems. But we know, the three of us, that innovation is a key component of that. And so I want you both to talk about that issue of innovation as a necessary, if not the most necessary component of solving these kinds of problems, given your experiences. And Tim, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, Richard.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having us today. The innovation, one of the most challenging things about innovation is that public policy is not written to accept it or to adapt it without re-voting on a new bill, whether it's state or federal. So you could have the cure for cancer, best thing since sliced bread. But the rules from the IRS or the DEP or the EPA, or you pick an agency. Well, when we wrote this, we hadn't thought of that technology coming to market. So we don't know if you can use it for that intended purpose or not.
I love it. We're going to talk a little bit about precautionary principle and the rules themselves, but what you're talking about is how the marketplace can solve problems with greater agility because of that innovation, isn't it?
That is completely correct. But then if they can't implement it, then it collects dust on the shelf.
Yes, this is believe me, we're going to talk about those kinds of philosophies about this. Richard, your thoughts here in terms of what you're dealing with, and I know you're dealing with tech and you're dealing with how those rules get translated into society, but let's talk about the innovation side in terms of solving the various problems that we're talking about here.
Yeah, well,
we certainly lean into the microphone if you would.
Sure.
Yeah.
We certainly need more innovation in the way that transportation is handled. But I think, before we can have the innovation, we kind of have to, get the big picture. And I think a lot of times, people, sort of miss the forest for the trees. And so, by that.
Oh, there we go. Thanks. We'll make sure that all these are on. By that.
By that, I mean, we need to, think about things like taxation by citation is wrong. Mm-hmm. Roads serve everyone. And cars are virtually indispensable to our way of life, certainly to our quality of life, to our prosperity. And so, we should not be taking people's cars or licenses, unless a serious safety issue is involved. It shouldn't just be someone has done something that I don't like, and so I'm going to take your license. That's just not acceptable. It causes too many problems. And one of the things that I think is missed in these discussions about traffic enforcement is that cars are one of the most powerful tools for fighting poverty.
Right.
If you have a car, you have options.
Right.
If you don't have a car, you don't have options. And and not only that, but also with elderly people, allowing them to maintain their independence.
Right.
If their 30-year-old car can't get inspected and passed anymore, and they have to give it up and they can't afford another one, their quality of life is probably going to decline,
Right.
and it could significantly shorten their lifespan simply because they're miserable stuck at home.
And no government bureaucrat, right? Well, we're fond of saying that a camel is a horse designed by a committee, but no government bureaucrat was going to invent the car. It's it gets back to that whole the book iPencil, right? It was no one person was going to, or no government agency was going to develop the pencil. It's the same thing with the car. I mean, a tool that has brought freedom, I'm going to say, to billions of people over the course of human history. I mean, that's not That's not understating it, is it? Or overstating it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, in Virginia alone, we have something like 6 million drivers.
Right.
Licensed drivers.
Sure.
Not counting anybody.
Thanks.
Not counting anybody who might be driving without a license.
Yes, let's not go there. But the idea is right. I mean, one of the things that certainly, in terms of the prosperity of America versus, say, the prosperity of post-Soviet Russia, right? We have not that I want to get into a whole electric vehicle discussion, but in the one of the reasons why you didn't have the same kind of a massive development of an economy in post-Soviet Russia was there was not that freedom of movement infrastructure that had been developed as it had in America in terms of you could go places. In Russia, in in Soviet Russia, if you were on a road and you didn't know where you were going, you shouldn't have been on that road. If you didn't have permission to be on that road, you shouldn't have been on that road. In America, it doesn't really matter. But so that whole idea of the freedom of mobility, it's inherent to not just individual freedom, but this issue of prosperity, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have a vehicle, your options of jobs are severely limited. Your shopping options severely limited. And so, yes, I think that's one thing, that policymakers need to seriously consider the importance of vehicles.
Yeah.
And so that should precede all of their decisions about parking and parking enforcement and red lights and speed traffic enforcement.
Believe me, I want to get into this. The innovation of I don't want to tee it up now. The innovation of enforcement and the automation of enforcement, which is a huge thing. I was at an event. We're looking at AI as this great bringer of promise, and I'm of course looking at AI as how it can help on the regulatory front, how we can make it easier for people to comply with rules and regulations. And I was at a lunch a few months back where I thought that was going to be the discussion, and instead it was somebody from one of the enforcement agencies talking about how they're going to be using AI to better engage in enforcement. I'm like, this is not.
Wasn't the idea?
Yeah, this is not it. But Tim, let's talk about the other side of this, which you were starting to get to, and we don't have to necessarily talk about the precautionary principle, but let's talk about the issue of. I guess we can talk about it. The issue of permissionless innovation versus the precautionary principle and how government gets in the way of innovation.
Okay, here, I'll give you a real-time live example that's going on this week and it'll be going on the remainder of this month. So Green Cool Infrastructure was founded after being introduced to a technology that was patented by a group, PTI, out of Ohio, where they came up with a way to address in a voluntary marketplace sequestering CO2 and NOx emissions, reducing microplastics from EVs and tire wear, and lowering urban heat island in cities, all with a single product that had been on the shelf, originally developed by the Japanese, implemented originally in some European cities. But essentially it takes a known quantity, titanium dioxide, they liquefy it into a applicable solution, apply it to a pavement surface, a highway, concrete or asphalt. When the sun comes up that next morning, it will sequester 50% or more of the tailpipe emission of NOx, CO2, the microplastics from the brake and tire wear, and lower the surface temperature in urban heat island by about 6 degrees.
Wow.
So, but to get permission to put it on a road.
God forbid.
So this venture started 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So we started talking with agencies. So the only way to make it, to monetize it and make it where you could actually deploy it, we needed thousands of miles of surface rights of highway systems.
Sure.
So we identified a number of key states. We'd like to start these 5 states first. Went and talked to the regulators, and they kind of look at you like you're from Mars or something.
100%. Don't
They're
fit
like,
neatly into whatever box
you want
they
to
want.
lease the surface of the highway. And we said, and we want to pay you to be able to do this. Yeah. This will be a revenue generator for your Department of Transportation in the state. they're like, well, why would you want to pay us? And I said, because it's your asset and we should pay you to use it. So we went through the safety checks. We went through, does the pavement react? Can you still stop as quickly before and after if the road's wet or not wet? And then we create voluntary compliance carbon credits, or 45Q compliant credits, based on the traffic that's generated that's driving on these roads, emitting those emissions. We sequester it, convert it, calculate it into what's been removed, and then we create it to the marketplace.
Sure.
So the last 2 years has been trying to get the first lease deal inked with a Department of Transportation.
Wow.
They were close.
Yeah.
Can't say that on the radio.
Sure. No, I get it. Yeah.
So
I missed it by that much. Yes.
So they said, well, the call last week was, well, how much money are we talking about? And I said, we're going to use a recognized revenue formula that all the states use already, a franchise fee model. Whatever your average franchise fee is for you, power utilities, gas utilities, whatever that is, we'll pay you off our revenue, gross
Right.
off the top. That franchise fee for the use your roads, because that's what they pay to use your right of way.
Sure.
It's an existing formula, public audit. We stroke you a check off
Right.
the top. So I said, that's okay, but we still have these other, they're still trying to figure out how to put it, the round peg in the square hole.
Right, because the other part of this is sort of recognizing from the work that I do in the telecom side of things, they're looking for whatever the lulu is that they can get out of it, right? If it's not just as simple as you get the franchise for the local
Right.
cable and internet, but what are you gonna give back to the community in essence to this? But at the end of the day, I mean, let's even for a second set aside the arguments about climate and carbon sequestration. Just the issue of volatile organic compounds, the NOx and SOx,
Right.
but also the micro bits of rubber and
Right.
things. That alone, I mean, you think about how much folks are spending in compliance costs. Obviously, well, maybe not obviously. You don't want to test this out on a live airport, but I don't know. I mean, that it seems to me that there's something very revolutionary in all of this, and they're not looking at, as Richard was saying, the forest for the trees, are they?
They are and they aren't. So
Okay.
there's 35 pilot projects around the country that this have been installed on. One of them is on the taxiway at Orlando International on the west side of the airport.
Right.
So they were open to that. They're open to taxiways, probably not runways.
Okay, that makes sense.
So just because of the perception, if you put anything on the surface,
Or God forbid something goes wrong.
right?
Yeah.
Even though it shows it makes it stop better in wet conditions, it actually improves safety. They
Interesting.
still don't want to cross the line and try it.
Got it. Yes. I mean, this is the issue of assessing risk and
Right.
trying to
So
determine policy based on that.
So we said, okay, you could carve out the runways and we can treat everything else. We just have to measure the activity, and airports are a little bit harder to measure.
Sure.
On a highway, if you put basically a toll monitoring in, you count your cars, the type of cars, trucks, goes through, you bounce it off EPA's database of what those cars generate. With airplanes at an airport on a taxiway, you actually have to identify each plane, how long was it on the taxiway, 1 engines, 2 engines on.
Sure.
So it can be done with AI. That's definitely
Yeah,
AI
absolutely.
over there.
So yeah.
It can be done. It's just not as easily to do.
So Richard, I mean, this is certainly a better way of getting some of this infrastructure paid for than, say, somebody coming to a municipality and saying, hey, you can make a huge amount of money if you put these speed cameras or red light cameras out there. The difference, of course, I would think being that because it's not individual taxpayers being dinged every time they go through. But talk about this and talk about your concerns there.
Yeah, well, there's a number of concerns, with red light cameras and with speed cameras.
And stop sign cameras.
Right, yes, exactly.
Yes.
In DC.
Work zone cameras. Yes.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So one of the problems with red light cameras is that after the red light cameras have been put up, shockingly, the yellow lights are shortened.
Right.
If you truly...
And we know this, right? That's
Yes,
been
it
proven.
has been-
Sorry, go
it has
ahead.
been
Yes.
proven, yeah. No, it happened at least twice in Virginia.
Yeah.
The other issue is corruption. These camera companies, have an incentive to bribe government officials, and they have done this on more than one occasion, far more than one occasion. But beyond that, I have a problem with the way that most of these contracts are structured, which is that the contractors basically rent the cameras to the public or to the local governments. And then every time that a ticket is given, they take a piece of the revenue, 25, 35%. That's just such a ridiculous way of doing law enforcement. We don't allow Ford to collect a piece of the revenue from traffic tickets given by police officers simply because they're driving around the Ford Explorer. Why do we allow...
Don't give them ideas.
Right.
Don't give them ideas. Sorry, but go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
We don't allow the companies that issue the ticket pads,
right,
to make a profit per ticket. No, you just sell the pad of tickets. You just sell the Ford Explorer, and you're done. So it seems to me these cameras, if we're going to have them, they need to be sold, they need to be maintained, but there should not be a portion of your ticket money going directly to the contractor.
Well, we're seeing this. I mean, when you and I were talking before the panel started, there's the situation down on Interstate 64 in Virginia, 50,000 red light camera tickets issued in this work zone. The situation, as we're recording this, folks, we are right up on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We are a long stone's throw away from New York Avenue, but I told a story about how New York Avenue, they lowered the speed limit artificially from 45 down to 35 when they put the red light camera, the speed cameras in there. And then during COVID, when they were not generating the revenue, I would never forget this. I read the story. They were lowering them from 35 to 25. So 45 mile an hour, a road that is built, and you guys both understand the engineering part of it. Sure. Road speeds are determined by how the road is built. Right. The only reason why you lower the speed limit is for the revenue generation. They were lowering it to 25, and I wrote to the reporter from whatever news outlet in DC who was doing this glowing story about this, and I said, did you ever think to ask the question, what was the purpose? Why were they, what is the justification behind doing this? Were they really seeing, anyway, because there has to be some kind of an objective measurement in both ways as to what they're trying to prove, doesn't it, gentlemen?
For
please,
sure.
Tim, go ahead.
Yes, I have yet to be caught by a red light camera, but I have come very, very close. But you're right, they changed the timing, the cycling of the lights.
But in terms of your work and what you're trying to do, in terms of pushing back and trying to give you hoops to jump through, it should be justified and based in something
should be
else.
Be able to read a one-page paper and understand it.
Right. I mean that's it, and it seems like they make it needlessly complicated for you, don't they?
A lot of hoops to jump through, and you sometimes you question the benefit. Occasionally you'll go, that's a good idea, that should be checked.
Right. So it's not even so, Richard, where if they took the contracting part out of it, there would still be problems. There were of inherent problems in this, right, but that would at least reduce some of the incentive, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, though, that's exactly it. So let's sort of get back to this issue because, Tim, you've got this lengthy career in solving other kinds of problems like this. Talk about some of the other work that you've done over the years where you have this intersection of obviously business, family business, but what you're dealing with is serving a public need.
Yes, so it's been a journey kind of growing up in a builder-developer family, but always realized that my dad didn't. I grew up that everything that our family businesses did was regulated by somebody.
Yes.
Or you had to write a check to an entity to get the rights to do something else. So he really got to a point where he threw his hands up. It's like, if you want to continue this business, you got to figure out how to do all this permitting stuff. So you can have, and I've served as an elected official for 8 years, where I voted to reduce fees, and as soon as I was out of office, they yanked them back up again, development impact fees for road construction. On top of toll roads in Florida, we're very well known for that. It can be frustrating having all the hoops you have to go through when you have a public benefit. The goal of this is, yes, the entity will make money. But it also will do good for the overall
it solves a problem.
And it's voluntary.
Yes.
We're not telling somebody, it's not a cap and trade situation. It's, if you want to be corporately responsible and your mission is that you'd like to reduce your company's footprint on emissions, we're going to provide you a more competitive cost to do that.
And there should be a regulatory regime that recognizes this. I know that OSHA, for a long time, it's been a while since they've done this, they had what they called OSHCON, which was a consultative process where if you were a small business, you could have an OSHA inspector come out and do an evaluation of your work site. and they would offer up their recommendations. They would not fine you if they found something that would otherwise be in violation. If you corrected it with a certain amount of time, they would issue a certification that would then give you a benefit on your workman's comp insurance, which was a great way of doing this. But something, because he talked about toll roads, Richard. I mean, I want to get your thoughts here, because we talk about public-private partnerships. Literally was talking to Richard Morrison of the Competitive Enterprise Institute a couple of days ago about this for an upcoming podcast on cronyism and the concept of GUGUs, good government. The problem, of course, is once you start to get a private entity in there, or you start to, I understand the need for congestion-based toll pricing, but there are some downsides to that as well. Talk about this.
Well, first of all, I despise the congestion tax.
Yeah. It should go right. It should go the other way, and I'm leaning the microphone a little bit because I want to make sure people get it. It should go the other way, right? If the problem we're trying to relieve is congested roads, like I'm on 95 South from here, because I know 95 goes down to where you live, but it is horrible between here and Richmond, Virginia. It's just terrible, and there's a lot of reasons for it. The idea, if there's congestion on the main lanes of 95. The tax should be, the fee to use the express lane should be lower in order to relieve that congestion. I would think that should be the way to do it. Now I'm fortunate. I paid. My opportunity cost goes into it. I want to get there and get where I'm going. But they have do they have it backwards, or am I misreading this?
Well, where I start with is the congestion tax is a horrible idea. These things should not be allowed.
Yeah.
There are already tolls. We don't need an additional congestion tax. We pay taxes for these roads. Why should we pay a third time after paying tolls? So that's where I started.
Yeah.
Now I'm also not one of these libertarians. Not libertarian at all, but
I'm sorry. I know I should see.
However,
I called you a libertarian, but I apologize.
I do obviously have some libertarian.
Sure.
traits.
Yes. Conservatarian, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is. Yes, I get it. Many flavors here.
Yeah. But so I'm definitely not one of these people, who thinks that we should have all these private roads and everybody should pay a toll.
Yeah.
Because I see toll roads as problems.
Right.
It's a barrier to entry. These Lexus lanes,
100%.
a lot of people can't afford them.
Right.
And in particular, Northern Virginia, the rest of Virginia doesn't really have toll road problems. Ridiculous, outrageous.
Did you come to this after the $45, $60, whatever it was on Interstate 66 coming inside the Beltway with that one all toll? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. But that is just outrageous.
Right.
It's entirely.
Wait, hold on for a second. So that Tim understands this. So the road leading out west of here, Interstate 66. They have congestion-based pricing. It is all toll on the way in and out during It's all the time. It's just during rush hour. I don't even remember at this point. But the tolls were like $60 one way when they got super congested. I mean, that is insanity. That's
You think you want to hold the carrot out there to get them to change lanes?
100%. But yeah. So you're already paying once. You're already paid. Go ahead.
Right, and it's not even a thing of the roads necessarily being congested.
Right.
Congested. It's just that perhaps you can't fly through at 70.
Right.
And it seems to me if the difference between being able to fly through at 70 at $60 versus being able to pay say $30 and be able to fly through at 50, I still think that's a good deal for people, as opposed to $60.
Right.
But the bottom line is I'm just not a fan of the Lexus lanes. If we have tolls, I think, should basically be a last resort when there's no other possible way of getting a bridge funded or an important lane funded. Then okay, fine. But the toll needs to be kept as low as possible so that people can afford to be on that road.
Right, but if you spend your own money and can somehow noodle your way through the process to build your own roadway, then you theoretically, that's the whole concept of the toll road, the franchise. There it is. This also gets into the issue of congestion pricing going into cities, which they have that down in South Florida?
They have congestion pricing based on the lane capacity, like 95 South in Miami.
Yeah, but not if you cross a certain line in Miami. You don't get dinged with a toll like they've been trying to do in New York.
If you're in certain lanes, yes, but you still have the right to go the free lane.
Got it. Yeah.
You just may move at a slower pace.
In New York City, if you cross over a certain line and you get into the congestion pricing district, you get an extra toll there, which is, it was already horrible enough with the bike lanes and everything else.
Right. Yeah. New York
sorry, go
intentionally caused the congestion
Right.
They put in all these bike lanes. They took out all the parking. They took out the traffic
And all the
lanes.
the outside restaurants in COVID, get rid of those. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then on top
Gripe
of
about
that,
New York City here.
on top of that, they brought in 100,000 Uber vehicles.
Yes.
That are just constantly circling and circling and circling and circling. There's your congestion.
Yeah.
Get rid of the bike lanes. Get rid of the tens of thousands of Uber cars, and magically the roads go back to normal.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not the goal.
Right.
It's a different agenda.
Right. It is. It is a situation. So let's sort of put our caps on and let's think about what's going down down the road. If you could wave your magic wand and fix anything today, that we haven't talked about, what would it be? If we have talked about it, talk a little bit about that.
There's several things. As a Virginian, I'd like to see the car tax killed.
Yeah.
Virginians hate the car tax. It's a recurring annual tax on your car. So I'd definitely like to kill that. Definitely like to get rid of red light cameras and speed cameras.
Yeah.
And just go back to good old-fashioned law enforcement with discretion. Beyond that, I think one of the other major issues that the politicians miss is predatory towing, particularly in an area like this.
Yeah.
And this gets back to, cars are important.
Right.
And we shouldn't allow, crony capitalists or the government to just steal your car.
Sure.
Or steal your ability to use your car.
Right.
And that's exactly what the predatory towing industry exists to do.
Oh, yeah.
Steal your car in the middle of the night, you wake up, you can't get to work. And, and then you have to go down to the tow lot, probably, on the scary side of town, and and deal with these very rude people and try to get your car back and explain to them, no, actually I had a right to park there.
Right.
Well, we think that you didn't, so therefore you have to pay us all this money, and if you don't pay us this money, you're not getting your car back. This is completely backward.
Yeah.
In no other case I can think of do we allow any business to be the judge, jury, and executioner. There always has to be some sort of due process. Like if you have your house painted,
Sure.
and you are unhappy with it, you refuse to pay the painter. Can he just come to your house and steal your lawn gnome and your garden furniture? No.
Or strip the paint.
Right,
Strip
yes,
the paint.
exactly.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a process. Has to file a lien.
Yes.
And but of course motorists don't have this. Even if you have time and you have money to go to court and sue and prove to the judge that you really didn't owe that $200, that you were parked in your spot and you had the appropriate sticker or the hang tag, you jumped through all the hoops, and the judge says, okay, here's your $200, I'm awarding judgment to you for $200. You may never see that money,
Right.
Because these predatory towing companies, they don't care. Some of their ratings from the Better Business Bureau
100%
are horrible.
All of them are.
They
I can't
do-
think of it. Yeah. Right. I mean, this
they-
is. This is.
F's and D- ratings are fairly common, and they just do not care what the judge orders.
It's fascinating to me because this is one of the when I finally moved out of the apartment I was in Arlington here in Virginia. I remember getting into it. I think I was in my then girlfriend, now wife's car. Had pulled into the 15-minute temporary parking space in my lot to go and grab something from my apartment before going over, and there was a guy getting ready to tow my car. And I'm like, he goes, well, that's for deliveries only. I said, it doesn't say for deliveries only. It says 15-minute parking. I was inside for about 7 minutes. Well, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not gonna argue semantics on this, but I knew what it was going to be. Having had my car towed in New York City, having been with friends who've had their cars towed in Philly, and you get to the CD thing out there, and it's nuts. Sorry, go ahead.
And the thing that people also don't recognize about these tow lots, the way I see it, they are public nuisances. There's constant, arguments and fights.
Right.
And police are being called. Because these people are being hit with a $300
100%.
bill that they're completely unprepared for, and they're desperate and they're angry, rightfully so.
Right.
If they think that their car has been
And
towed
assuming
improperly.
that you can prove that it's your car, which is always a thing, you need the documentation here. My documentation's in my car. Well, you can't get out to your car to do it, and it becomes a whole, chicken and egg Woody Allen movie semantics thing, and it's just. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And violence sometimes ensues.
Right. Sure.
There was a crazy case a few years ago in Florida. A trailer park had just signed a deal with Strapped Towing.
Okay.
And so straps towing, the neighborhood didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
But they wanted to make sure that they didn't have problems going
That's
forward.
listen, this is like creating an HOV management company, and that's just yeah.
So at one particular trailer, straps towing decided to tow not one but two vehicles. They towed one vehicle because it was parked in the grass, and according to the rules, cars couldn't be parked in the grass. However, it was actually on rocks, which was fine. But the towing company was like, "Oh, there's grass growing up."
Sure, of course, right.
So we're towing the car. So there was also a car in the driveway that didn't have plates on it. So the owners of the car came out with the plates. They're like, "Look, this is our car. Please don't tow our car." Strap towing wouldn't listen. They towed the car anyway. They wouldn't drop the car.
Right.
Off the car goes. So the next day, the family goes down to get their two cars out. And they wouldn't release one of the cars because now magically it wouldn't start.
Sure.
And so the owner was at lunch somewhere far off, and he wanted to get another fee.
Right, of course.
Out of the family for jump starting the car.
Sure.
So at some point, one of the family members gets quite enraged, and so he decides it would be a good idea to drive his car at one of the vehicles.
Oh boy.
Yes. And so he hits the brother of the owner of Straps Towing. And so at that point, the owner of Straps Towing thought that it would be a great idea, as the guy fled the vehicle, he thought it would be a great idea to shoot him. So, kills him. Because Straps Towing felt the need to get $4, whatever it was, out of this family, we wound up with, one guy in the hospital, one guy in the morgue, and one guy in jail for second-degree murder. And the question is, was it all worth it?
Right.
I don't think
Listen,
so.
you quote Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction: "Never mess with a man's vehicle." Tim, let me turn it to you sort of as we sum things up. I mean, how much time do you guys have to get this underway? And are you already looking at whatever the next best thing is, the next innovation that's going to solve these problems? Because I will tell you, I give this one to you for free because I have no engineering or chemical background whatsoever, but the person who was able to invent the paint that has nanotechnology embedded in it that will turn any surface into a solar power generator, like you just spray it on the wall of your house, that person is going to, corner the market. So I'm giving that to you for free. But what's next for you guys? How much time do you guys have?
We're gonna pursue forward. It's been 5 years. We knew certain milestones had to happen. Sometimes we had to wait for agencies to, they don't work here anymore. We brought in new people, and now we've got to school them up on where the last guy left off at. That's in one of the states. I think we could see, we're in the tunnel. We could see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then we were hoping for our first project to be installed last quarter of 2025, nice. But it's probably going to be somewhere first quarter, second quarter of 26.
Excellent.
And most people are, when you actually show them, and they're just like, this will be great. But then you get into the fine print, and like I said earlier, that many states have different statutes or rules or regulations, and nobody thought of this. Somebody invented this.
Would some measure, I mean, I'm not a big fan of federal harmonization, but would some sort of signal out of, say, the EPA on this, would that be helpful to you?
It probably wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Would it influence them to sign off 100%? Probably not, but it would be, we have a lot, between 35 pilot projects and Texas A&M, Purdue University, University of Arizona as the researchers on the technology. You've got some of the best universities in the country that deal with transportation or heat issues or air quality issues. So that's been, the patent holders have really spared no expense in the millions of dollars to get all this validated.
And theoretically, right, we're talking about pennies on the dollar in terms of deployment, and then when you turn around and you look at the savings and what the regulatory costs are to deal with these problems, it really is a no-brainer, isn't it?
In the long haul, correct? Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's we have to look down the road at those things. How do folks find out more about the good work that you guys are doing?
You can reach me, Tim Zorc, phone number 772-633-2004 under Green Cool Infrastructure.
Tim Zorc, Green Cool Infrastructure. Richard, how do folks find out more about your work? And
you can find me on LinkedIn, Richard McCarty, or Coalition for Motorists Rights on Twitter.
Richard McCarty, Coalition for Motorists Rights. Thank you very much. Tim Zorc, thank you very much. Listen, this brings us to the close. I'm not sure if we're going to publish this, if I'm going to wind up publishing this online, but gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
So you tell